Shalom, brothers and sisters. Shalom. Giving honor and praise unto the Most High, the Creator, the Maker of heaven and earth. My name is Yeshaya Yisrael of the tribe of Dan of the nation of Israel. This particular presentation, we do not intend, brothers and sisters, for it to be long, but it may be over an hour. We're starting now, say now about 3:40 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We hope and pray that everyone is well and will be better. Brothers and sisters, we hope and pray that people learn from this and are enlightened by this. I am open to consistence, and as I learn this internet thing more and more, I'm going to have it to where it's on YouTube and on the matter of Facebook Live. The Facebook name is Yeshaya Author Danite. All right, so without any further ado, let me stop the camera, brothers and sisters, as is the custom, and we're going to start in prayer and move on from that particular matter. All right, if I can be heard well and people in good spirits, please type in the number 4. If I can be heard well and people are in good spirits, please type in the number 4. Thank you. Most High, God of our forefathers, God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, we ask you to be with us, to guide, shield, and protect us from danger seen and unseen. We ask you, being the one who created the heavens and the earth, and none else. There is none beside you in the heaven above, on the earth beneath, that we can turn to. You are the one who was, the one who is, and the one who will be, forever and ever. Without you, there is naught. Without you, we are naught. Without us, you are who you are, O King. Yah, the one who created the heavens and the earth. To you and to you alone belong strength and dominion. We ask you to be with our minds, our thoughts, and forgive us of our shortcomings, our iniquities, O King. We ask you to even be with us in this Shabbat and today, such as unto this, and to people who are in unison in the matter of saying of Shabbat and other matters, O Yah. King of all that there is, rock of all salvations through every generation. We say, no day lefane kale olam wa'ed. We give thanks unto you forever and ever. Hallelujah.
Hallelujah.
Hallelujah. Amen. Brothers and sisters, elders, we ask you all to participate with us in this. We are on the channels, More Yeshaya, Torah lessons, More Yeshaya history lessons, and the Facebook group. Oh, pardon me, the Facebook page, Yeshaya Author Danite. And what we are here to bring out, brothers and sisters, what we want to bring out to the people is how the scriptures ties itself into history by being shown to be evidence that it is not a religious text, brothers and sisters, that it is not a plagiarized text, brothers and sisters. And many who go and may want to say something is plagiarized, in many cases do not name who the plagiarist is, which means that the claim cannot be upheld. Because in one breath, going against Israelites, they will say that the Israelites were just regular Canaanites who decided to break off from other Canaanites and so forth. If that be the case, then you are then saying that Israelites by default existed. But then that doesn't work in what your stance is in some cases. Because the stance is that Israelites supposedly did not exist in history and supposedly wrote themselves into history. That's a claim made by some. So what we want to do on this channel and to channels such as unto this, we want to present information live to the people to show the truth is in what the truth is in this particular matter and in this particular case. We hope and pray, brothers and sisters, again, that everybody is well and will be better. We ask you to get your pens, your pads, and your paper and take notes. We ask you to comment, to like, and to share. We ask you, if you are interested in it, to take screenshots of the PowerPoints that we will be presenting, brothers and sisters. We will be presenting, say, a matter of 30 or so matters of slides and PowerPoint matters, if we will. All right? And we'll be going over several instances that we want to show for edification purposes. So, brothers and sisters, without any further ado, let me take down the brand that we see there that we're going to be talking about later on in this. All right. And we're going to, brothers and sisters, pull up, if we will, the PowerPoint matter. Going to start from the beginning in this. The matter with Passover, Exodus, David, and Daniel. Now, brothers and sisters, the matter say with Passover, right? Okay, so let me know by typing into the chat if you can hear me well and if you're in good spirits. Thank you for that. All right. Plus, if you will, then the number 4. All right. As we pull this back up, brothers and sisters, and what it says in this particular matter. All right. Thank you for that, brothers and sisters. Shalom, my lady Sarai. Shalom, brother Yirmiyahu. And what we're going to get into, brothers and sisters, is a lot of history. We're going to be using the camera throughout this presentation for reference purposes. All right. So what I see on the screen is saying the matter with Passover, Exodus, David, and Daniel. All right. So let us get into this. Thank you for that. Giving honor and praise to the creator of heaven and earth, the most high power. Thank you for that. What you're looking at here, brothers and sisters, is a matter of a plane above the clouds. And a plane above the clouds shows, as it says in the book of Psalms, the heavens show the handiwork of the Most High. We do not, and I say this in respect, want problems with the one who created such. Anyone who's been on the plane knows about its magnitude, about what you see up there, brothers and sisters. And I remember being on a plane once, and the plane shook, brothers and sisters, due to what they refer to as turbulence, due to the wind that was blowing and so forth and so on. Brothers and sisters, we're talking about the one who sees all and is not seen. We're talking about the one who judges all and is not judged. The one who called Jacob a worm when you go into the book of Isaiah. You understand? That is whom we're speaking of. The Most High, the creator of the ends of the earth, is not to be compared unto a man. For a man cannot make this. You understand? So, let us continue in this manner. Exodus chapter 1. Now these are the names of the children of Israel which came into Egypt. Every man and his household came with Jacob. Reuben, Simeon, Levi, and Judah. Issachar, Zebulun, and Benjamin. Dan and Naphtali, Gad, and Asher. And all the souls that came out of the loins of Jacob was 70 souls, for Joseph was in Egypt already. We can gather and ascertain, brothers and sisters, that it was not a good thing, a common thing for Israel to forget family. The reason why Joseph wasn't counted with those who came into Egypt with Jacob, simply as it states there, he was already in Egypt, which becomes important as we go along, brothers and sisters, in this presentation. So now, for those who do know, certain things carry, sidebar, energy and vibrations. Where I work at, there's a whole stack of pens. If somebody whom I know or don't know asks to use a pen, at that point you can keep it because you're going to need it later on if you're asking for me now. I don't want the pen back. I don't know how you treat your hygiene. I write PowerPoint notes with these pens, so you can keep it. I'm going to show on the camera, if we will, right? Just showing me on the camera here with this. I use my pens, and it means something of value to me. Just sidebar in that particular case. All right? So, brothers and sisters, in continuing in this manner, if our ancestors, how this can connect, were not using pens in their day and time for what they was writing with, how will we have the notes that we have today? How will we be able to sit there and ascertain what was written in the cuneiform, what was written in the hieroglyphs, what was written on the papyrus of Egypt, or what was written on the parchment of the Hebrews, or what was written on the clay tablets of the Sumerians? If pens, regardless of what style of pen it was, which was a writing instrument used by different peoples, if records were not to be kept. It is easier in this day and time than it was, say, some time ago, to even become an author. So why not become one, brothers and sisters? Let's continue. And Joseph died, and all his brethren, and all that generation. Let us continue. And the children of Israel were fruitful, and increased abundantly, and multiplied, and waxed exceeding mighty, and the land was filled with them. Now there arose a new king over Egypt, which knew not Joseph. Now how does this apply to Shabbat? Because for one, it's in the Torah. Two, it's not wicked. Well, what the Egyptians did to the Israelites was not righteous. But this is, we'll find out later for those who are interested, that when they left the land of Egypt, it said, this shall be the beginning of your months. Now, of course, we already know Shabbat has a different counting than a month because that Shabbat is every week. But brothers and sisters, at the same token, Deuteronomy chapter 5 says, you shall remember that you was a servant in the land of Egypt, therefore Yah gave you the Shabbat day. So why will we perhaps think, and I'm speaking in general, may think that it is not of importance to get into this kind of subject and this kind of matter on the Shabbat. You can gain history, knowledge
out the scriptures. Not too long ago, somebody was saying about you don't believe in the Bible because it's written by man, but you use tarot cards, which was also made by man. The difference between the Bible, and by that I mean explicitly the Old Testament, as it's called, and brothers and sisters, tarot cards, is the Old Testament, the Torah, tells you what to do when a woman is on her menses, as it's called. It tells you what to do when you as a man have a nocturnal emission. The Torah tells you how to deal with children. It tells children how to deal with parents. It tells us humility and understanding. When Moses was wroth or angry with Aaron for not eating the offering, Aaron said, how can I possibly eat this when my spirit is not right, knowing the death of my children? It said that Moses held this peace. So sometimes certain situations will let it be known that you have to respect somebody's what? Feelings. It tells you in Torah, you should not stand idly by the blood of thy neighbor. You understand? The only time in Israel, in the Torah, where, pardon the terminology, where spitting is an actual custom, is when it says the man doesn't want to raise seed in his brother's name, and it says his widow spits in his face and unlaces his shoe. That's one instance. And the other instance is regarding a disease. When it says that somebody spits on somebody who happens to have an STD, it can spread in that manner. When you deal with Von Doom, as shown in the Exorcist movie, spitting is part of that culture and that kind of belief. Whereas in Israel, in the Torah, that is a thing that you do for something that is a disgraced or a diseased matter, not something that is a good ritual in that case. In Torah, you will find that you're not supposed to return a servant that escaped from his slave master. You understand? But the Code of Hammurabi has it as a death penalty if you harbor runaway slaves. So Israel as a kingdom, as an empire, as a people, was what you would call in layman terms a slave runaway society there where they harbored runaway slaves. So much for the Bible being from the white man, because they had the Fugitive Slave Act of 1850. And if you harbored a runaway slave in North Carolina, it was a crime that was punishable by imprisonment. So that's not his book. You understand? The Torah talks about the use of hyssop in the book of Psalms, and it says, purge me with hyssop and I shall be pure. Hyssop, brothers and sisters, breaks the mucus down in your membranes within your lungs. May he rest in peace. Dr. Sebi talked about no disease can survive without mucus being present. So if hyssop, which is mentioned in the book of Psalms, breaks down the mucus, and if Dr. Sebi stands to be right, which I do believe in, studied a little about myself, is that no disease can function without mucus there. Hyssop gets rid of the thing that nurtures a virus or a disease. Not to get too personal, I know relatives who happen to have the HIV matter. Taking red clover, taking golden seal, and taking suma, S-U-M-A, their T-cell count begins to go up. We talk about herbs and berries being given to the men of David in the book of Samuel. Tarot cards ain't going to tell you that. You understand? The Torah, the Bible, the Old Testament that primarily I'm speaking of, will tell you, brothers and sisters, that if you have a servant that says, I will not leave my wife and my children, that his wife and his children are supposed to remain there. You do not, in Israel, break up the family, brothers and sisters. as was done with our ancestors. So these are things, brothers and sisters, we care to bring out and talk about for reference purposes. The first countries mentioned in the Bible is Sumer, Ethiopia, Egypt, Canaan, Israel, Libya, Somalia under the name Put, India under the name Hodu in the book of Esther. The black places in the scriptures is mentioned over 2,000 times. The Old Testament, you don't read about anything concerning the Greeks say by name until you get to the book of Daniel and Zechariah, when the black empires of Persia, such as, was beginning to decline. So the Old Testament, as it is called, has over 1,000 years of history without mentioning white places, white countries. So how is it then, by the tarot card readers, a white man's book? Somebody did not look, and I say this in no disrespect, carefully while reading or wanting to read their cards, the truth of what they're trying to talk about. You understand? Look at the people who delved into conjuring up the dead. And in the Torah, it says, you should not seek them out that you be defiled by them. There's no glory that came out of that, brothers and sisters. We call on the ancestors. No. What we do is this, brothers and sisters, if I may show. We get our pens that you see right here, right? We get our pad of paper, as you see here, with notes, and we record the writings of our ancestors. That's what we do. We don't sit there and pour libations and go and say, calling on Harriet Tubman. We're not doing that. We take her biography and we teach it to our daughters. We take her biography and we read it to our ancestors. And by ancestors, let me not say that. We read it to our elders. Let me correct myself. So this is why we need to respect our ancestors. Yes, you don't disrespect whether they're among us or not, but you definitely must respect your elders while they're here. You understand? So these are things we care to bring out. Let's go in. Now there arose a new king over Egypt, which knew not Joseph. And he said to his people, behold, the people of the children of Israel are more and mightier than we. Come on, let us deal wisely with them, lest they multiply and they come to pass. That when they're full of fight any war, they join also unto our enemies and fight against us, and so get them up out of the land. Therefore they did set over them taskmasters to afflict them with their burdens. And they built for Pharaoh treasure cities, Pithom and Ramses. Now, I'm going to, brothers and sisters, cite a secular book and show what I'm talking about, if we will, right? The name of this book here is called The Egyptian Kingdoms, written by Rosalie David, A. Rosalie David. And in the index under slaves, in the glossary under slave, this is what we read, brothers and sisters. And it says the following, if we will. Thank you for that. Prisoners of war from the Middle Kingdom onwards were usually owned by the crown, that is to say, the ruler, the king, the pharaoh, the temples, or native Egyptians. However, they were not used in building of Old Kingdom pyramids. Even slaves had their own possessions. They could marry whom they wished. Their owners could legally free them. They could own and inherit land. And they could even possess native Egyptian servants. Some achieved positions of responsibility in Egypt. Now, that is from that book, brothers and sisters. The name of this book, as we just read from, is called what? The Egyptian Kingdoms by A. Rosalie David. And on page 108 of this same book, brothers and sisters, we see the following. Slavery, if defined as a deprivation of one's man's freedom by another, existed in Egypt. The slaves were war captives or refugees. Now, were not Israelite refugees going from the land of Canaan to Egypt? Let's continue, brothers and sisters. There is no evidence that foreign captives or slave laborers were used in the Old Kingdom to build the pyramids. Egypt's territorial expansion, with its resulting prisoners of war, had not developed at this period. Not until the Middle Kingdom is there evidence for the use of a number of foreigners, Nubians and Asiatics, as domestic slaves in Egypt. So, brothers and sisters, this is coming from this particular book, if we will, called what? The Egyptian Kingdoms. And in it, we just read, if we will, I'm going to show the book, pardon the cover. All right, there is no cover on it itself, and the binding of it's a little old. So what I'm going to do is show the name of it by opening up the book itself in this particular case. Written by Rosalie David. Now let's look at this, brothers and sisters, right? We just got into the fact that the scriptures is talking about the Israelites being oppressed in Egypt. Now, it says right there in the Middle Kingdom is when they'll find Asiatics and Nubians as being enslaved in the land of Egypt. Can we contest, if we will, something here in this particular matter? And I like to show this as reference, right? This is from the tomb of Raqmere. Obviously showing something that happened in his day and time or something that happened later on. Brothers and sisters, I like to pay close attention, if we will, right? Of the two pins, putting one down, to what we see right here. What is this gentleman doing sitting down when everybody else is working? And what, brothers and sisters, can we say concerning that kind of matter? That's talking about them, brothers and sisters, making bricks. Exodus chapter 5 in your own time shows it to where the people were made to have to deal in the making of bricks. So, brothers and sisters, this is not something that we're just talking about because we have nothing else to sit there and deal with and talk about. All right? And that is something we care to point out for reference purposes. It says in reading the book of Exodus, therefore they did set over them taskmasters to afflict them with their burdens. And they built for Pharaoh treasure cities, Pithom and Ramses. Now, brothers and sisters, I like to sit there and read from another, if I may, as the term goes, secular source, right? And this book right here is called Atlas of Ancient Egypt by Baines and Malek. All right? And I'm going to show the inside because there's no cover showing its title. In this particular case, if we will, right? Atlas of Ancient Egypt. And brothers and sisters, on page 40 of this book, we're going to sit there and see what we can read for reference purposes. During the reigns of Amenemhat I and Senusret I, there was much building in Egypt, and the great series of forts in Lower Nubia had begun. At the same time, a number of important works of literature were written, and the material and intellectual achievements of the dynasty made it classical in later Egyptian and modern eyes. An instance of this is the relief carving of the chapel of Senusret I at Karnak, which is in going toward more southern Egypt than where me and my lady was, for instance, which serves as a model for early 18th dynasty artists. Why does that in part become important? Because if the Israelites was in Egypt during the Middle Kingdom being enslaved, the pharaohs were able to be prosperous. When it says in you and your seed shall all the nations of the earth be blessed, that goes whether it's in favor of the Israelites or not. Let's continue. The 12th dynasty king with the most lasting reputation was Senusret III. He is noted especially for his Nubian campaigns, in which the frontier was moved south to Simna at the southern end of the Second Cataract. It goes on to say, brothers and sisters, the main purpose of this military activity may have been to counter the increasing influence of the Khmer rulers to the south. During his reign, meaning during the reign of Senusret III of Egypt, 12th dynasty, there was also a campaign to Palestine, which we know is a terminology used for the land of Canaan of ancient times and later on became known as the land of Israel, which was apparently not intended to conquer the area, but which at the beginning of the period of considerable Egyptian influence there. The region was then semi-nomadic and did not become settled until the end of the 12th dynasty. That becomes important. Senusret III worked with a sizable, steady army whose organization had only recently begun to be understood. Goes on to say, there is a complete continuity in the archaeological record between the 12th and 13th dynasties, even though the nature of the kingship seemed to have changed considerably. In about 150 years, some 70 kings of the 13th dynasty came and went. There were many immigrants from Palestine, we already explained Palestine, apparently peaceful arrivals, who were absorbed into the lowest levels of Egyptian society, but at least one of them, Kinjir, became king of Egypt. In the later 13th dynasty, the Eastern Delta was heavily settled by Asiatics. So now, taking this book here, and we already expounded upon from it, talking about the matters of the 13th dynasty, and prior to that, the 12th dynasty, being in the Middle Kingdom of Egypt, where it was heavily populated by Asiatics. So if we cross-reference that and reread what we read already, right? Page 108 inside the book by A. Rosalie David, we see the following again. This is something we care to bring out for reference purposes. Not until the Middle Kingdom is there evidence for the use of a number of foreigners, Nubians, and Asiatics. Now remember, we just read in what is referred to as a secular book that the king Senusret I made a campaign, that's to say a war, against the Nubians. When you go to war and you win, you get slaves out of that. It goes on to say, as domestic servants in Egypt, Nubians and Asiatics. So you had the Nubians / Cushites / Ethiopians that was being enslaved along with the children of Israel. When you get in the scriptures and understand when it says that the children of Israel left with a mixed multitude, What is that mixed multitude that the children of Israel left with? See, these are things that we care to bring out for reference purposes. All right? Let's continue, brothers and sisters. Thank you for that. Now, let's look at this map right here. Right? We're going to show with the pen, if we will, Avaris. Right? And I want to show it with a different color as well. All right? Avaris. That is the land where the Israelites were in Egypt, where they settled at. The Bible refers to it as the land of Goshen, brothers and sisters. Egyptians referred to it at one time as the land of Hut-Waret. All right? I'm going to type that inside of here so you can sit there and see it for your own self. Hut-Waret. All right? And for those on Facebook, Hut-Waret. All right? So, brothers and sisters, when the Exodus happened, we found out that they wind up going to the land of the Sinai. And we'll expound upon that in the next presentation. But we just want to, brothers and sisters, get into this matter right here for reference purposes. We hope and pray that everybody is well and will be better. Please comment, like, share, and subscribe. Let's continue, brothers and sisters. All right? Mud brick pyramids used during the era of the Middle Kingdom of Egypt, dynasties 12 to 13. Now, brothers and sisters, these are things we care to show. If the book of Exodus teaches us that the Israelites were to be given straw at one point, but they were denied the giving of straw, but they're still supposed to make what? A tally of bricks. This is a mud brick pyramid. So when we read in Josephus, in your own time, as we'll touch on in here, you will find out, brothers and sisters, that the Israelites, according to that, were made to build pyramids. And this is an example of that during the Middle Kingdom, during the time of Amenemhat and Senusret. You understand? Let's continue, brothers and sisters, in this particular matter. All right? Now let's look and see chronological time frame in this matter. Amenemhat the first, of whom we read of, he built what is called the walls of the ruler to keep the Amo Asiatic from entering Egypt. We want to, brothers and sisters, take this time, if we will, right? And I'm going to just check this off because this becomes very important later. Remember this line right here because we all are going to come back to this slide. Let's continue. All right? Senusret the first, he did an expeditional raid against the Cushites, the Nubians, and thereby getting gold. Let's continue, brothers and sisters. Amenemhat II, a time in which there were Asiatic captives in Thebes. Now, Thebes is going more south in the land of Egypt, or what they refer to as Upper Egypt, right? Senusret II, a waterway built in the Fayum for irrigation. He built a mud brick pyramid. We showed that earlier. Let's continue. Senusret III was known for slaying Asiatics, and like others too, had a mud brick pyramid. So, brothers and sisters, these Asiatics, according to Sir Alan Gardiner in his books, Egypt of the Pharaohs, were hand-me-down slaves, if you want to use the term, because a man who died gave 4 Asiatics Amu slaves to his wife. They refer to that as the Kemnu Amu. That's to say the slaves of the people of Asia. That's to say the Asiatic slaves. Now, when we say Asiatic, we're not talking East Asia, Vietnam or so. No disrespect intended. We're talking about the Levant area. We're talking about the area of Babylon area. We're talking about the area of northern Saudi Arabia. All right, let's continue, brothers and sisters. Amenemhat III built like others mud brick pyramids and had Asiatic slaves. Now, Amenemhat III pyramid was the pyramid that, for whatever it's worth, Beyonce was not allowed to go into. What did they think was going to be found? Who knows? Let's continue. Amenemhat IV was not the son of Egyptian royalty and is not found among the Egyptian pharaohs. That becomes important later too. Sobeknefru, the last ruler of the 12th dynasty. Sobeknefru was a woman. Did you know that? You know, it's common practice for the daughters of Egypt to go and bathe at the Nile. According to the Bible, one of those women found a basket with a weeping baby inside of it, right? And according to the Bible, this baby who was found and what the Israelites refer to as the Yeor and the Egyptians refer to as the Iteru, and what the later peoples refer to as the Nile. Me and my lady was talking earlier, and we was talking about being by the Nile River. And I remember saying, do you know what that means? We was in the place where Moshe, was as a baby. That becomes important. What happened to Amenemhat III's son, biologically, that he did not rule, and that the next pharaoh after him is not found among the pharaohs, and ruled for 9 years and some months in Egypt, according to the writings of the Egyptians, was the rule of Amenemhat IV. What happened? That he fled from the records. While everyone, even some who try to come against Israelites, say the Egyptians were careful writers. So why did you not write about the later life of Amenemhat IV? And why is he not found among the pharaohs of ancient Egypt, brothers and sisters? The Bible says that this baby that was found in a basket grew to become a man known in Egypt, and his name became great in Egypt, according to Exodus chapter 11. According to Deuteronomy 11, the world knows about the history of the Israelites. So I am comfortable on the Shabbat to bring this out. When the Torah says the world knows this, we want to bring this suppressed truth out to the people, brothers and sisters. Let's continue and see where we're going. Deuteronomy 13, pardon me, Dynasty 13. Sorry about that. Like, subscribe, and comment and share. So Bekhotep III, he was the pharaoh who received the list of Hebrew sales from Seneb-Tc. Neferhotep I, his tomb was not found among the Egyptians to date. His son's name was Ha'ankef. He died before his father. Sihathor, he was the brother of Neferhotep. So now, what happened, brothers and sisters, in Dynasty 13? Because we already shown through external sources what the slave was in Egypt and who the slaves were in Egypt during the Middle Kingdom. And we already gone over the rulers of Dynasty 12 and some now here of Dynasty 13. What am I leading to? For those who know or don't know, is that that baby in the basket did become, as Josephus talks about, a ruler in the land of Egypt. You understand? This ruler in the land of Egypt flees from Egyptian records after a while. And we're going to see later on what happened by citing outside sources, for those who care to go there, about what happened in part to these Nubians and these Asiatics who were oppressed by the Egyptians. Let's go on. They became very abusive to the Israelites and contrived many ways of afflicting them. For they enjoined them to cut a great number of channels for the river and to build walls for their cities and ramparts, that they might restrain the river and hinder its waters from stagnating upon its running over its own banks. They set them also to build pyramids. So the building of pyramids would have been known in Egypt perhaps prior to this time. So now when people at what they call the Pyramid of Giza, which goes back to dynasties of the Old Kingdom, the model of working that the Amu or the Asiatics brought was with bricks. That's why you see now mud brick pyramids in the Middle Kingdom of Egypt, but not in the Old Kingdom of Egypt and not in the New Kingdom of Egypt. Check the references, if you will, brothers and sisters. Let's continue. Shifra and Asher. The top part of the rectangle says Shifra, and the bottom part of the rectangle says Asher. This is called hieratic writing, used in literature of the Egyptians. Now that's part of the Brooklyn Museum Papyrus 35.1446. You can take the train, correct me if I'm wrong, the 2 to 3 train to Brooklyn Museum on Eastern Parkway and go and see that in New York City. What are we pointing out there, brothers and sisters? Shifra is the name of the woman that approached the Pharaoh in Exodus chapter 1. Asher is one of the tribes of Israel. So what, again, are we getting into? And if this dated to the Middle Kingdom of Egypt, we already read that literature began to become more profound or much more expounded or much more in great number during the Middle Kingdom of Egypt. We want to focus on that for the moment, brothers and sisters. Sometimes, and I've taught it, that Thutmose was the Pharaoh of the Exodus. I now come from a school of understanding that says Neferhotep was such. This is why you might find Thutmose the third body, but you may not find Neferhotep the first, even though that the Egyptians have their way, none of their bodies will be found when you study their culture. So let's continue, brothers and sisters. It goes on to say, and I shall say unto Pharaoh, thus saith Yah, Beni Bekori Yisrael, Israel is my son, my firstborn. And I have said unto thee, let my son go, that he may serve me. And if thou refuse to let him go, behold, I will slay thy son, thy firstborn. Exodus chapter 7 now says this. And Yah said unto Moshe, see, I have set thee in God's stead to Pharaoh, and Aaron thy brother shall be thy prophet. Thou shalt speak all that I command thee, and Aaron thy brother shall speak unto Pharaoh, that he will let the children of Israel go out of his land. And I will harden Pharaoh's heart, and multiply my signs and my wonders in the land of Egypt. But Pharaoh will not hearken unto you, and I will lay my hand upon Egypt, and bring forth my host, my people, the children of Israel, out of the land of Egypt by great judgments. Great judgments is how freedom was attained. It was not sitting down at the litigation table, brothers and sisters. Eventually, the talks have stopped with the prophet Moshe, and the plagues began from the Most High. Let's continue, family. And the Egyptians shall know that I am Yah, when I stretch forth my hand upon Egypt and bring out the children of Israel from among them. Let's continue. Dated to the era of the Middle Kingdom of Egypt, the Apura Papyrus. This is a hieratic writing of the ancient Egyptians, dated to the era of the 13th dynasty of Egypt. We already read earlier, right, in this book called Atlas of Ancient Egypt by Baines and Malek earlier, right, about the what? Middle Kingdom in the 13th dynasty. The Asiatics that were there. And then we read also, brothers and sisters, inside the book, The Egyptian Kingdoms, that during the Middle Kingdom, which inclusive of Dynasty 13, is when they had Asiatic slaves. Do you see how all of this connects into what we read in the scriptures? And this is why we want to point this out. The Torah, called the Old Testament by the Christians. The Tanakh, called the Old Testament by the Catholics, if you will, too. Right? Is the book that contains the enslavement and the deliverance of a people. The slave Bible that they used to have in the South didn't contain Moses leading the children of Israel. It just had Joseph going in there as a slave. See, they slick. You understand? So, brothers and sisters, let's continue in this particular matter. This is, brothers and sisters, the Apura Papyrus, dated to the era of Dynasty 13 of Egypt. Let's see what some of it says, brothers and sisters. Notes from the Apura Papyrus. Indeed, or behold, or for sure, should I say. Many dead are buried in the river, the stream. Indeed, noblemen are in distress, while the poor man is in joy. Indeed, the river is blood, yet men shrink to drink from it. Indeed, gates, columns, and walls are burnt up. Indeed, men are few, and he who places his brother in the ground is everywhere. Indeed, every dead is a firstborn male. Let's stop right there. What does this begin to sound like in the Apura Papyrus of Dynasty 13? It says what? Indeed, every dead is a firstborn male. Goes on to say, indeed, trees are felled and branches are stripped. Indeed, that has perished which yesterday was seen, and the land is left over to its weakness like the cutting of flax. Commoners coming and going in dissolution. Indeed, everywhere barley has perished, and men are stripped of clothes, spice, and oil, and storehouses are empty. Indeed, magic spells are divulged. Hold on. Magic spells are divulged. Does not the Bible talk about the Egyptians did things with their secret arts? When the plagues was talking about? See, when Moses and Aaron cast down the rod before the Pharaoh called his magicians, they who do magic, magicians. And the Bible speaks about they too cast their rods down and it became serpents. That was not uncommon in Egypt. And as we just read here, brothers and sisters, sorry about that. It says what? Indeed, magic spells are divulged. Indeed, scribes are killed and their writings taken away. Behold, the possessor of wealth now spends the night thirsty, while he who once begged his dread for himself is not the possessor of overflowing bowls. Behold, the poor of the land have become rich, and the owner of property is one who has nothing. Lower Egypt weeps. What is Lower Egypt commonly called? Northern Egypt. So, brothers and sisters, why in Dynasty 13 is Lower Egypt weeping? Why they who were in dregs are now happy, according to this? Why do men shrink to drink from it? Because the water is blood. Sound like the plagues that Exodus talks about. And what happens in discussing this, sometimes people say, oh, that means the Israelites plagiarized it. So then you got to sit back and then admit the Israelites' existence. One, if you're going to say someone plagiarized something. And two, you're going to have to sit there and then admit that if it was supposedly plagiarized, which it was not, because the Bible and its records was already in circulation when the world did not know about these papyri until the matter of the 17 and 18 and 1900s. So when did this supposed plagiarism happen to make the book of Exodus that some people want to sit there and state? See, it doesn't exist in that case. You understand? Lower Egypt weeps, as it says that there was not one where there was not one dead, and there was great cries in the land of Egypt. Let's continue, brothers and sisters. Indeed, men slaves, their hearts are sad, and magistrates do not fraternize with the people when they shout. Indeed, hearts are violent. Pestilence is throughout the land. Blood is everywhere. Death is not lacking. And the mummy claw speaks before one comes near it. In other words, death is touching them. Indeed, many dead are buried in the river. The stream is a sepulchre, and the place of embalming has become a stream. Indeed, noble men are in distress, while the poor is full of joy. Who's the poor full of joy? If all of these things was happening according to Apura Papyrus in Egypt, why would there be anybody happy? And who would be happy to see the former rulers of the land fall down in grace? But the slaves. Do you know black people were happy in the South because white people was upset over Lincoln saying that slavery should be eventually abolished? The slave master's upset makes the slave happy because there's something that's happening in that case. So these are things, brothers and sisters, we care to bring out for edification purposes. Let's continue. Thank you. Note from the Apura Papyrus continued. The Apura Papyrus continues to say, indeed, the river is blood, yet men drink of it. Men shrink from human beings and thirst for water. Let's look at this for a second. The scribe Apura distinctly says, the river is blood. I meant to put is, sorry. What river would the Egyptian speak of? The Nile. Did the Nile turn to blood? The Bible in Exodus chapter 7, verse 15 and 25 speaks of the river being turned to blood. And how the Egyptians dug around to get water. Apura, quoting him again, said, the river is blood, yet men drink of it. Exodus chapter 7:21 and says in part, the Egyptians cannot drink of the waters of the river. The fact that Apura is saying that yet men drink of it, and the Bible is saying the Egyptians cannot drink of the water of the river, shows that they try to drink but could not drink it. So brothers and sisters, the Magifot or the plagues that fell upon the Egyptians, can they be cited from the Egyptian scribe Apura himself? And though in reading the Apura Papyrus, not all the 10 plagues are mentioned in there, such as the frogs, correct me if I'm wrong. But one of the things that Apura did state that we read earlier, right, is that scribes are killed and their writings are taken away in Egypt. So now when people tell us, oh, the Egyptians were careful writers. Were they so careful writers of the events in their day and time that they had their stuff taken away and were killed? Scribes are killed and their writings are taken away, said Apura Papyrus. Why are you killing your scribes? Let's go on. The Bible in Exodus chapter 12, verse 35 to 36 says, and the children of Israel did according to the word of Moses. And they asked of the Egyptians jewels of silver and jewels of gold and raiment. The Bible and Apura agree and that the woman got silver and gold and raiment. That's called in today's terminology reparations. Let's continue. The fact that Apura stated the noble women, their bodies are in sad plight by reason of their rags, plus Apura said that their hearts shrink for greeting one another, the fact bears to mind that the Apura papyrus is saying that the people are sad, while, as stated, the slave is of joy. What will cause this to happen? A pestilence? A death? According to Apura, it says, death is not lacking. Apura in his papyrus stated, death is not lacking. The Bible in Exodus chapter 10:17, concerning the plague of locusts, is that it was called death. So when we read perhaps then in our papyrus that death is not lacking, and we see in the Bible that locust was called that death, can we see the connection say with so? Now let's look at this here. Any questions or comments, please feel free to type it into the chat. Let's look at this here, brothers and sisters. Eyewitness Account of Ancient Egypt is the name of that book. Who are the people you see there? The guy standing in the pink thing, and the other people sitting are all what you call people of color. Some of them were slaves, some of them were not. As Rudolph Winslow pointed out in his book, From Babylon to Timbuktu, the Israelite enslavement in Egypt was one black nation enslaving another. Let's continue. Apura says, indeed, laughter is perished and is no more. It is groaning that is throughout the land mingled with complaints. The Bible in Exodus 10:7 says, and Pharaoh's servant said unto him, how long shall this man be a snare to us? Knowest thou not that Egypt is destroyed? The fact that the Bible is saying the servants of Pharaoh said Egypt is destroyed, and we see Apura saying all is ruined, we see a connection. Remember, Apura was a nationalist. He loved his country. Apura stated, laughter is perished and is no more made. It is groaning that is throughout the land. In the Bible, Exodus chapter 12:30, we read, and Pharaoh rose up in the night, he and all his servants, and all the Egyptians. And there was a great cry in Egypt, for there was not a house where there was not one dead. Let's continue, brothers and sisters. These are Israelites, if I remember right, from the land of Israel itself. Let's continue. Apura stated, indeed, all animals, their hearts weep, cattle moan, because of the state of the land. The fact that he mentioned cattle moaning shows that there was something wrong. Cattle moan when there is something wrong with their master, believe it or not. Pay attention. In Exodus chapter 9:3-5, we read, behold, the hand of Yah is upon the horses, and upon the donkeys, and upon the camels, and upon the oxen, and upon the sheep. There shall be a very grievous murrain, and Yah shall sever the cattle of the children of Israel and the cattle of Egypt, and there shall nothing die of all that is the children of Israel. So these Israelites who were enslaved in the Bible in Egypt did have cattle. So when we go back in the secular book saying that slaves in Egypt were allowed to have possessions, is not far-fetched. Let's continue. And Yah shall sever the cattle between the children of Israel and the cattle of Egypt, and there shall not die of all that is the children of Israel. And Yah appointed a set time, saying, tomorrow Yah shall do this thing in the land. It is interesting to note that both the Bible and Apura papyrus speak of the cattle and the fact that something is happening in the land. What would make the cattle mourn? The death plight of other cattle. The Hebrew in 9:3 says the word deber, meaning pestilence or plague. The understanding is that the pestilence with the cattle caused other to mourn in the land. Let's continue, brothers and sisters. Thank you for the time. African Hebrews map, different places of Africa showing where Israelites would have been scattered and what we see there. Blood, attack on Hapi, the Nile god. Frogs, attack on Heket. Lice, attack on Set. Flies, attack on Ushit. Death of cattle, attack on Apis. Boils and blains, attack on Bes and Isis. Hail and fire, attack on Nut and Jeb. Locust, attack on Nut and Osiris. Darkness, attack on Aten, the sun god. Death to the firstborn. Attack on Sekhmet, the quote goddess of childbearing, and attack on Heru, the quote god of the Pharaoh, who the Pharaoh said he was the incarnation of. So when it says that he's going to go against all the gods of Egypt, this is a list of the plagues that happened. And it was attacking their gods. See, the Most High is going to talk to you in a way that he knows how to reach you. Each person has their own, for the lack of a better term, lifeline, lifelock connection and communication with the Most High. And when Yah is ready to let you know something, he's going to let you know in a way that he knows that you will be able to hear it, that it will stand out to you. These plagues stood out to the Egyptians because this is not just any regular thing. Brothers and sisters, let's continue. Thank you for the time. Now, could this be in Egypt remains of what happened with the plague of the firstborn? We already read and Torah talked about it. We already know and have read the scriptures talking about it. Far-fetched, because that was found in northern Egypt and lower Egypt. Let's continue, brothers and sisters. Apira mentions this. Indeed, scribes are killed and their writings are taken away. Woe is me because of the misery of this time. This shows that Apira, being a nationalist, could care less about the fact that anyone is dying beside the Egyptians or the livestock of the Egyptians. When we read scribes are killed and their writings are taken away, we have to now think who is killing the scribes and why are their writings taken away. The people of Egypt were, as noted by scholars, secret to themselves. Any questions or comments? Please feel free to type it into the chat. The wind blowing, the sea dividing into parts. They pass over. The Hebrews flee through the sea. The sea is turned into dry land. Let's stop right there for a moment. The sea is turned into dry land. We're going to talk about that a little later with the time allotted, right? You got to go into the New Testament in order to talk about the Euphrates drying. But this right here shows that the sea was dry from the time of Moses. This is talking about the Reed Sea, brothers and sisters. So that's not unusual throughout timing and societies. And that's in the said Old Testament. Let's continue. Goes on to say, the waters permitted and dismissed to flow, burst rushing unawares upon the astonished men, congregated from quarters, banded together to slay treacherously, being lifted up with pride. Their leader divided asunder the sea, its waves warring. The people enter and pass through the midst of the waters. Moses caused the people to haste like a fleet wing sea ostrich crying aloud. The cloud shining bright, a mighty army propelled into the sea, is gathering into one. They go jumping and skipping through, journeying through the open channel, taking flight from the face of the enemy. So who's the enemy? If it says that they were fleeing from the enemy, and this is what the Hebrews doing it. Let's continue, brothers and sisters. The surge of the sea is divided. The people flee. The tribes descend into the deep. The people enter the waters. The people enter and penetrate through the midst. The people are filled with stupor and perturbation. Yahweh is the keeper of the companion. Their enemies weep for the dead. The virgins are wailing. The sea flowing down overwhelmed them. The waters were let loose to flow again. The people depart fugitive. A mighty army is submerged in the deep sea. The only way of escape for the congregated people. This is found in the Serabit El Kadim, which is part, brothers and sisters, of the Sinaitic writing that is in the Sinai Peninsula in translation. Certain key things point out the Hebrews, Moses, Yahweh, the keeper of the companion. Why did I say earlier, remember a particular slide, which we're going to go back to now? I put a check mark on it if you remember, right? And here, brothers and sisters, is the reason why. Amenemhat the first, he built what is called an Eboheka, the walls of the ruler or the walls of the prince, to keep the Amu or the Asiatic from entering Egypt. So if Amenemhat the first was the successor of Mentuhotep and partly the co-regent of Mentuhotep the fourth of Dynasty 11, that means the Amu or the Asiatics had to been in Egypt already to prior to Dynasty 12 for the first ruler of Dynasty 12 to build something to want to keep them out. In order for the Pharaoh of Dynasty 12 to build what is referred to as the walls of the prince or the walls of the ruler to keep the Amu out, shows that the Amu or the Asiatics had to have been in Egypt in part already, as we've been reading inside of secular sources earlier. You understand? So that's why in part I put the check there. Now let's go back there, because this is a question that was asked to Israelites, and not that we got to address each and every single thing, but just definitely want to point this out for reference purposes. Right? Reason why I say don't have to check each and every single thing, because people will come up with questions just for the sake of coming up with questions. All right? It says at the end of this here, the waters were let loose to flow again. The people depart fugitive. A mighty army is submerged in the deep sea. The only way of escape for the congregated people. So it's been asked, well, if the Israelites just walked into Egypt, why couldn't they just walk on out? Because they were building forts. That's why we read this here. It said the only way of escape for the congregated people, the Hebrews, was through, brothers and sisters, the sea that was dried up. Let's continue, brothers and sisters. Passover papyrus. Let's get in this, brothers and sisters. To my brother Yedaniah and his colleagues, the Jewish garrison, your brother Hananiah, authorize a festival of unleavened bread for the Jewish garrison. So do count 14 days from the month of Nisan, which is the Babylonian way for the Hebrew Abib, and observe Passover. Brothers and sisters, got to turn the camera on for this one. What are people talking about? Saying that nobody in antiquity was keeping the ways of the Tanakh. In Ethiopia to this day, in a place called Gondar, they keep a timing in Aram and Amharic referred to as Fasika. Fasika is the Amharic way for the Hebrew word Pesach, the English word being Passover. They make Kita bread, which is unleavened bread. And according to, even for whatever it's worth, white people visit Ethiopia, Kita bread tastes, oh God. They make Kita bread among the so-called falashes that date back according to their timing, since the timing of Solomon, they being in there, all right? And it's unleavened bread. So if the Passover papyrus we see there is dated to the timing of the 5th century BCE, before the Common Era, How can we think a ceremony we see spoken of in Leviticus that the Old Testament came from who? The white man. Absolutely not. You know how you know not to be racial? That the Torah did not come from man, and that the laws in the Torah did not come from the white man. There's two things this. Man doesn't know in general the woman's anatomy to say if she has a flow of blood in Leviticus 11 and it goes outside of the time. Outside of what time? Women know about that, what it is already. Once they go through puberty, their mothers teach them, their aunts teach them, their grandmothers teach them. Men don't know about that. Oh, she starts to bleed, I think, on Tuesday for 2 or 3 days. But then sometimes the following Wednesday, it starts again. Men don't know that in most cases. Furthermore, as nasty as man is, there will not be a prohibition of being carnal with your spouse during that time as is in the Torah. As unhealthy as man is, there will not be laws in Leviticus talking about eat this, don't eat this. You can eat this, don't eat that. We see men in restaurants, I want medium rare. Let the blood just like that. So, no, Torah does not come from plagiarism of other cultures. Torah does not come from other nations, brothers and sisters. Nor does Torah come from Israel. It comes from the Most High through the prophet Moses to Israel for Israel to teach the world. Passover diet is the healthiest diet on earth. You're getting your protein from the lamb. And I'm not a doctor, don't get me wrong. The bitter herbs definitely cleans out your nasal. And the unleavened bread is not the leavened bread that sits in your colon month after month. So it works on your weight. It works on your diet while you're gaining protein. That is the healthiest diet on the earth. Torah speaks about circumcising on the 8th day. Brothers and sisters. See how all of this can tie into the Tanakh? Why are you going over this on Shabbat? Let's do this, brothers and sisters. 8th day of a male's life is when vitamin K is the highest in that male's whole life. The 8th day. What do we know in Israel about the 8th day? That's the day of the circumcision. Vitamin K produces blood clotting. Don't tell me that we are not under the jurisdiction of the supreme intelligence of the universe, the Most High. Circumcise the baby when in his life, he's going to have, throughout all the days of his life, vitamin K will be the highest at that point. See, man doesn't think like that. So when we read in Isaiah that the ways and the thoughts of the Most High is like the heavens is higher than the earth compared to man's thoughts and ways, we can see what that is about. In that movie, The Exorcist, the lady is calling and talking about what we read in Ezekiel 36. Don't want to ruin the movie for anyone. She takes a bowl with hyssop in it and says, go outside and throw it to the east of the house. Why the east is significant? And while everybody else there is calling upon JC and whoever else, putting a cross on both of the little girl's head, whatever was in the movie, that demon, whatever, went into that person, turned that person's neck around and slew him. Those who have eyes to sit there and see, while the other lady is there saying that the Lion of Judah will prevail. And of the 2 children, you see who was left alive, for those who do care to see it. See, brothers and sisters, when we start talking about, as we read earlier in the Emperor Papyrus, that magic spells are done, the Most High is going to meet you where you are. If you don't speak English, the Most High wants to bring a message. If you don't speak Hebrew, it's going to be brought to you in a way for you to understand it. So what do we want to point out in this? and part in history that they was observing the laws of the Most High God. That is not an Egyptian custom of Passover. That is a Hebrew custom. How there is a record of people keeping a Hebrew custom before the King James Version, before the Septuagint? Because the people were already part of the diaspora. This is dated to 419 BCE. I want to read something from a secular source, if we will, right? This is a book here I have called Understanding the Old Testament by Bernhard Anderson. Spoke of this book before. And on page 385 of this book, brothers and sisters, pardon me, 358, I stand corrected. Of this book, we read the following. Egypt came to be one of the major centers of the Jewish dispersion. And it says Jew, Yahudi, literally means a descendant of the Judeans who formerly occupied Judah. So this is the book, brothers and sisters, I just read from. Understanding the Old Testament by Bernhard Anderson. So he was talking about a timing when Babylon was in rule. And he stated that Egypt became one of the major centers of the Judeans' dispersion. So when we see the Passover papyrus, after that time frame, that's how we know the timing connects. That's why on this platform, we go over these kind of matters. This is history of the Israelites being brought up that some care about, some don't care about. Some are into, some think whatever it is, what it is. All right? And these are things we want to point out. Somebody said in the comment, rise in greatness. We can't see you. It's set that way, my brother. Thank you. It's set with the camera to not see me, so the PowerPoint can be seen. It is a custom on my platform, and it's not to sound arrogant by saying my platform, that I'm not seen. I appreciate that if you subscribe to the channel. That's that. It hasn't changed from the Passover papyrus because we're still talking about the Passover papyrus. This is dated, brothers and sisters, to the 5th century BCE, which means that it was before the timing of Alexander, which means that it was before the timing of Philadelphia's Ptolemy II. And thank you for the comment saying powerful information. See, one of the reasons, sidebar, I don't want to show me on it is because I'd rather the PowerPoint be seen for the information to be powerful. I don't want to be a distraction from the information being presented. That's important. That's just a custom I have on my platform. And I appreciate the comment. Thank you for that. My brothers and sisters, right? Ptolemy Philadelphus, Ptolemy Philadelphus, 3rd century BCE. 200 something BCE. 3rd century BCE is after the timing of what we're talking about here. He's the one who commissioned the Israelites to go into Jerusalem's library, go and get the books and bring it to his library. And that's how, in part, you get the Septuagint. The Septuagint, I have a copy of it, speaks about them keeping the Passover in Leviticus. And there's a copy of it. The Septuagint speaks against homosexuality and praises, as the regular Tanakh does, King Josiah for getting rid of the men of Judah that was into homosexual acts. Now, Alexander, their leader, was a sodomite. In Greek culture, Zeus had a male sexual person with him. So the culture of the Israelites and its condemnation of homosexuality is not in agreement with the culture of the Greeks. So though Ptolemy Philadelphus, a Greek of the Ptolemaic line, was interested in the writings of the Israelites, we know that those writings of the Israelites is not from the Greek culture. You understand? So this information, the person in the chat said powerful, the glory goes unto the Most High, who the Elephantine Papyrus talks of. You see these names here? We want to point out, right? I just want to highlight it, if we will, right? Yedoniah, Yah will judge. Hananiah, Kananiah, God is gracious. Now, Nisan is the Babylonian way of the Hebrew Abib. Any questions or comments, please feel free to put it into the chat. Thank you all for that, brothers and sisters. All right, let's continue. I fear for my country when I reflect God is just. Because remember, we in slavery were not allowed to read. There's a reason for that. For I, Yah, love justice. I hate robbery with iniquity, and I will give them their recompense in truth, and I will make an everlasting covenant with them. Isaiah 61. For behold, Yah will come in fire, and his chariots shall be like the whirlwind, to render his anger with fury, and his rebuke with flames of fire. So, when we are asked as Old Testament Israelites, when you start talking about prophecies and a lake of fire and things of that kind of nature, this in the said Old Testament talks about that already. And this is in the book of Isaiah. Let's continue, brothers and sisters. For by fire will Yah contend, and by his sword will he, and by his sword with all flesh, and the slain of Yah shall be many. Let's continue, brothers and sisters. For I, Yah, change not, and ye sons of Jacob are not consumed, so that there is no thing such as the tribe of Dan not existing. All right, we want to point that out. Let's continue. Malachi chapter 3. There shall be a visitation from Yah of hosts, with thunder, and with earthquake, and great noise, with whirlwind, and with tempest, and with the flame of a devouring fire. So, in the New Testament, when they say that the quote second coming of Jesus, these are the things say to look for in Matthew 24, we already see that already mentioned in the prophet Isaiah. That the Most High will visit with earthquake, whirlwind, tempest, fire, and great noise. So what was done was a change of the Lord's. The Lord God, in many people's eyes, became the Lord Jesus. So when you read L-O-R-D in many cases in the said Old Testament, some people think that it is talking about JC, or commonly referred to as, quote, Jesus Christ. Meanwhile, these prophecies that we just read in Isaiah, brothers and sisters, and that's in Isaiah 29, and in Isaiah 61, it's already prophesied what will happen. We already read about the Sea of Reeds becoming dry land. That becomes the point for what we're going to talk about. See, we want to talk about history and showing the Tanakh in reality. When I say Tanakh, I'm talking about the Old Testament in that case, right? But brothers and sisters, we want to let the prophecies and the laws also be taught on these platforms. Don't want to go, as the Torah itself says, to the right hand or to the left. History is good, language is good, but as we point out usually on this platform, before Ezra retaught the people Hebrew, he was speaking to them in the language they knew about the laws. So these are things we care to bring out for reference purposes, brothers and sisters. Therefore, wait ye for me, saith Yah, until the day that I rise up to the prey. For my determination is to gather the nations, that I may assemble the kingdoms, to pour upon them mine indignation, even all my fierce anger. For all the earth shall be devoured with the what of my jealousy. Can somebody type it in who's seeing this in the chat? When it says shall be devoured with the of my jealousy, what's that word there that I did not state that we see there, brothers and sisters? If we will. All right. So let me read that again, because this is coming from the book. Thank you, my brother Yirmiyahu. Thank you, my lady Sarah. This is coming from the book of Zephaniah, who was a contemporary prophet to Jeremiah, which is say 50, 60 years, no, 50, easily over 50 years after Isaiah. But let's see this. So we see 50 years before Zephaniah, 50 plus years before Zephaniah, Isaiah talked about it. During Zephaniah time, which is the same time of Jeremiah, we see it mentioned what? For all the earth shall be devoured with the fire of my jealousy. So when they ask us as Old Testament Israelites, what are you talking about with the days of the end? And what is your take about the fire that's going to come? And is there a lake of fire and things of this kind of nature? We read it in Isaiah, we read it in Zephaniah, and we're going to continue to show what we're talking about for reference purposes. Let's continue, family. Let the book speak for itself. Yeshaya 24 or Isaiah 24. The earth fainteth and fadeth away. The world faileth and fadeth away. The lofty people of the earth do fail. What? The lofty people of the earth do fail. The Most High brings kings up and down. Let's continue, brothers and sisters. It goes on to say, the earth also is defiled under the inhabitants thereof. And it tells you why the earth is defiled, right? Let's continue. Because they have transgressed the laws, meaning the laws of the Most High, violated the statute, broken the everlasting covenant. The everlasting covenant. The Most High made a covenant with Noah and his sons after the flood. The descendants of Shem, Ham, and Japheth violated that. Keep my laws. There's no such thing as no high laws. It's the laws that's supposed to be for everyone on earth. Of course, there's certain, the Levites have this, a girl has this, a boy has this, a woman has this, and so forth and so on. But in the said Old Testament, which they swear we don't talk about, and this is not to be in one's feelings, do they talk about the, quote, Armageddon, which is really the Greek word, correct me if I'm wrong, for Megiddo. Megiddo is a land in the tribe of Issachar, which we spoke upon this platform in the past. Oh yeah, what you're talking about in that is already spoken about in the said Old Testament. Now, of all the records that I read from the Enuma Elish, from the Kibra Negast, from the Tales of Sinuhi, from the record of the Dandara matter, and from the records of the principles of Ma'at, from the Code of Hammurabi, I have not read anything close to something like this. I've read in the so-called New Testament, where they attempt, once you understand the Old Testament, to take certain things out and Revelation to make it sound like it. But when do we read inside of Egyptian records of Amun-Re coming with the fire? When do we read about Hathor, of the Egyptian goddess, coming with something of that kind of nature? When do we read about Marduk of Babylon or Bel of Babylon coming with something of that kind of nature? When do we read about Ahura Mazda of Persia coming with something like that? What happened essentially is Yah is the true and the living God of heaven and earth, and he spoke to his prophets about what he will bring to the earth. These are things we want to bring out for edification purposes, family. Let's continue. Thank you. It goes on to say this. The earth also is defiled under the inhabitants thereof, meaning under our feet, Israel included. We have transgressed the laws. We've been saying that for decades among Israelites, violated the statute, broken the everlasting covenant. You want to know why all of these things is going on in the world? Greece has a problem. Congo got a problem. China got a problem. America got a problem. Because we don't keep the laws that the Most High has already given the world. That's why. Israel violated, and because Israel had the covenant, it became harder on Israel than anyone else. So when you hear Israelite teachers teach that something will happen when Israel gets their act together, is similar to what Willie Lynch's letter talks about, a great phenomenon that will come and set things different. Let's continue, brothers and sisters. We're going to cite what the book says. Therefore hath a curse devoured the earth, and they that dwell therein are found guilty. Therefore the inhabitants of the earth waste away, and men are left few. Men are left few. Let's see part of the violation that happened. It's not in the PowerPoint here, but we're going to read it. If the brother Yirmiyahu Aki, if you there, please type in the book of Isaiah chapter 13, if we will. We're going to let the book speak for itself. All right. We went over history. We talked about the pharaohs. We talked about the Egyptian writings. We talked about different things of that kind of nature. Let's see what the Israelite writings state. Now that we already shown the evidence of the Exodus from the Egyptian side, as we already knew the biblical side, the Torah side, as we already talked about the mixed multitude being part Nubians and Asiatic/Hebrews that left out in the book of Exodus. So let's see what this is here. This is in the book of Isaiah, chapter 13, and letting the book speak for itself, family. Here is what we read. All right. Isaiah chapter 13, verse 13 is where we're reading at. Isaiah 13, verse 13. Therefore will I shake the heavens, and the earth shall remove out of her place, in the wrath of Yah of hosts, and in the day of his fierce anger. See what we showed earlier with the airplane above the... Let me just go back there for those who didn't see it. And for those who did see, who care to see it. Let's go all the way back. This is not to scare no one. This is the Most High spoke to the Egyptians through the plagues, through the ways the Egyptians would know. The Most High is going to speak to the earth this day through the things that people know. I sat there. I remember one time not living righteous in my life. I'm not going to sit there and slander self. I got a message. I'm there walking. Hey, I'm just walking around the job. And I see 4 zitziot, or fringes, on the ground. For those who know New York City pretty well, off Canal Street and Lispinard Street area, where you take the J train to Canal Street, or the A to C, or the E to Canal Street. That vicinity there in New York. Why will I see 4 fringes with the quarter blue? Because the Most High is talking to me on the street, mind you. Because the Most High is talking to me, son, return to me. Son, return to me. That was Yah talking to me through that. And I knew it. So you see this right here? The cloud there. That was taken as a live photo, or from a live photo, when I was flying one time to the south. That's the top of the clouds from the way the airplane looks for those who have flown or fly. Right? Don't want problems with the one who can make that. As they say, talk about fire. Who wants that smoke, brothers and sisters? Because after the Egyptians, in that matter, that's when you find the Hyksos coming into place as rulers, because their army done depleted from them. So we don't want that, brothers and sisters. We want to be on the right side of the Most High. You understand? Oh, by the way, the statement that says, I fear for my country, When I reflect that God is just, that was said from the President of the United States during slavery. That we just went over there, right? Just want to go over this here real quick. With the time allotted, thank you all for that. So, brothers and sisters, in Isaiah chapter 13, verse 13, and what we read in it, we are going to, thank you for that, with the time allotted, go over such. Thank you for typing that in, my brother. And it says as follows. Thank you for that. Therefore, I will shake the heavens, and the earth shall remove out of her place in the wrath of the Lord of hosts, and in the day of his fierce anger. And it shall be as a chaste roe, and as a sheep that no man taketh up. They shall every man turn to his own people, and flee every one to his own land. So eventually, the way the Most High had things set up will go back into its order and into its own place. These are things, again, that we are talking about for reference purposes. So there will not be, we hope and pray, no misunderstanding of what we're talking about. Thank you for that, my brother and sister. Let us continue. Isaiah 44, verse 27, and Isaiah chapter 11, verse 15 and verse 11. It says this, thus say that saith to the deep, be dry, and I will dry up thy rivers. Did we just read that? That say to the deep, be dry. Remember in Genesis, when it says the waters of the great deep, and I will dry up thy rivers. And Yah shall utterly destroy the tongue of the Egyptian sea. And with the scorching wind will he shake his hand over the river, and will smite it in 7 streams, and cause men to march over dry shod. What are we pointing out in Isaiah chapter 11, verse 15? While some say Old Testament Israelites don't go in this kind of stuff. It's not competition, but we want to present that. Yes, we do. And we want to expound upon it, giving thanks to the Most High, brothers and sisters. Right? If I can be heard well and people in good spirits, please type in the number 4. If I can be heard well and people in good spirits, please type in the number 4. What is, brothers and sisters, we want to show with the pen here, right? Thank you for that. What is this river that it talks about? Let's see. And it shall come to pass in that day that the Lord will set his hand again the second time to recover the remnant of his people that shall remain from Assyria and from Egypt and from Patros and from Cush and from Elam and from Shinar and from Hamath and from the islands of the sea. Now that's written of in the timing of Isaiah, right? Let's remember, it talks about the Egyptian sea, and it talks about the river. Let's see what the book is speaking of, line upon line and precept upon precept. Thank you for that, family. Isaiah chapter 43, verse 19, and 1 Kings 14, verse 15. Behold, I will do a new thing. Now shall it spring forth. Shall ye not know it? I will even make a way in the wilderness and rivers in the desert. For Yah will smite Israel as a reed is shaken in the water, and he will root up Israel out of this good land, which he gave to their fathers. And he will scatter them beyond the river. We see that river again, brothers and sisters, because they have made the Asherim provoking Yah. What river is that talking about in 1 Kings chapter 14? The Euphrates. What river are we talking about here in Isaiah chapter 11? The Euphrates. How do we know that river is that Euphrates river? You go to Deuteronomy in your own time. It talks about from the great river, the river Euphrates, to the river of Egypt. Line upon line, precept upon precept. We already see in Isaiah that the Most High in Isaiah 44 spoke upon by saying, be dry to the deep, meaning the waters of the great deep, and I will dry up thy rivers. So now when we correlate that with Isaiah chapter 11, verse 11, we see what? The people that remain from Assyria, from Egypt, and from Patros. Let's go to Genesis chapter 2, verse 10. So we can sit there and let the book speak on its own accord. Can that, brother, can you type that in? Genesis chapter 2, verse 10. I believe that's where it's at. Thank you for that. For edification purposes, if you will, right? It goes to say this here. Genesis 2, verse 10. And a river went out of Eden to water the garden, and from thence it parted and became 4 heads. The name of the first is Pishon, that which compasseth the whole land of Havilah, where there is gold. And the gold of that land is good. There is bdellium and an onyx stone. And the name of the second river is Gihon. The same as it compasseth the whole land of Ethiopia. The Gihon is the noun. Okay, let's continue. And the name of the third river is Hiddekel. That was goes toward the east of Assyria, and the fourth river is the Euphrates. Hiddekel is the Tigris River. So the Euphrates River mentioned, brothers and sisters, in the scriptures in Genesis chapter 2. It's called the river, brothers and sisters, when we go into the book of Kings, 1 Kings 14:15. And we see also river called Nakal in Hebrew when you see Isaiah chapter 11, verse 15. So we know already that the Holy Land is not in the West. That we could tell off the map. All right, so looking at this again, brothers and sisters, his people that remain from Assyria, showing it, if we will, with the laser pointer. Any questions or comments concerning this, please feel free to type it into the chat, right? It goes on to say here, brothers and sisters, thank you for that, my lady Sarai. Remain from Assyria, from Egypt, from Patros and Cush and Elam and Shinar. Where is Shinar, brother, sister? Shinar is Sumer, which is in modern day Iraq, not far from the Euphrates. So when you go into the New Testament, saying in Revelation 16 that the Euphrates is going to dry up, and Old Testament Israelites ain't got no knowledge of it, or so forth, how can that be when the Old Testament, whether it's pronounced by Old Testament brothers and sisters in today's time or not, already talked about the rivers being made dry? That's already prophesied, brothers and sisters, in the Tanakh, in the said Old Testament. This is why we wanted to go line upon line and precept upon precept. Because one time they came and said, well, how do Old Testament Israelites feel with the prophecies of Revelations already coming to pass? This was already prophesied about the rivers drying up. It didn't give you, say, a specific time, but it definitely sat there and let you know that the Most High is the one who does it. So, brothers and sisters, these are things we care to talk about. When you go to 1 Kings 14, it's talking about due to the sins of Jeroboam, the king of Israel. Scattered them beyond the river. So when the Most High put us in again the second time to gather the people and said to the deep, be dry, and I will dry up your rivers, that is already prophesied for the benefit of the children of Israel. This is what we're talking about for reference purposes. Let's continue, family. House of David and David. We're going to let the book speak on this. I didn't type all this out. But in Isaiah chapter, let me turn the light on so my eyes won't strain. We're going to read in Isaiah chapter 7, right? In Isaiah chapter 7, verse 2, we see the following. And it was told the house of David, saying, Syria is confederate with Ephraim. That's the house of David over 10 generations after David's death, during the time of King Ahaz. Let's go to Isaiah 7, verse 13. And he said, Hear ye now, O house of David. Is it a small thing for you to weary men? Still talking to King Ahaz. Talking about the house of David there. Let's go to Jeremiah chapter 21, verse 12 to let the book speak, right? And it goes on to say, because we want to bring something out for reference purposes. Jeremiah chapter 21, verse 12 says this for reference purposes. Thank you for that. O house of David, thus saith Yah, execute judgment in the morning and deliver him that is spoiled out of the hand of the oppressor. Lest my fury go out like fire and burn that none can quench it because of the evil of your doings. Brothers and sisters, this is during the time, long after the timing even of Ahaz that we read of in Isaiah, and centuries after the timing of David, during the time of King Zedekiah, still called the house of David. Why do we go here? Let's show for edification purposes. Let's go to Zechariah chapter 12, and we're going to read in verse 7, and we're going to read in verse 10. All right? We're going to let the book speak for itself. Zechariah chapter 7 and Zechariah chapter 12, sorry, as you see on the screen, is Zechariah 12, verse 7, says the following. Yah shall also save the tents of Judah first, that the glory of the house of David and the glory of the inhabitants of Jerusalem do not magnify against Judah. So the house of David is spoken upon during the time of Zechariah, when Israel on a human level did not even have a king. So let's go to verse 10 of the same chapter. And I will pour upon the house of David and upon the inhabitants of Jerusalem the spirit of grace and supplication, the spirit of grace and of supplications. And they shall look upon me whom they have pierced, and they shall mourn for him, as one mourneth for his only son, and shall be in bitterness for him, as one that is in bitterness for his firstborn. This is not talking about Jesus Christ in Zechariah chapter 12, verse 10. All right? But two things we care to point out. When it says this here, and I will pour upon the house of David, still mentioned in the house of David, as we read in Isaiah, as we read in Jeremiah. What this is talking about, when it says here, the Most High will pour upon the inhabitants of Jerusalem the spirit of grace and of supplications, and they shall look upon me whom they have pierced, and they shall mourn for him, as one mourneth for his only son. This is talking about them not keeping the laws, the statutes, and the commandments of the Most High God. Because when you go into this account of the New Testament, correct me if I'm wrong, it wasn't per se Israelites who pierced him, or was it? Let me know. We can have a discussion upon it on your platform if you care to do so. And I say this not to debate nobody or try to sound tough or anything of that sort, but it comes to ever so often where Israel's going to unite, but we got to know what we're uniting under. There's a whole Israelite school called Israel United under Christ, IUIC. Or Israel United in Christ, sorry. We, the Old Testament-based Israelites, as we are called, say that we need to be united under the Most High. Christ is not the Most High. Jesus is not the Most High. So, brothers and sisters, and looking upon this, let's continue upon the matter when it speaks upon house of David. Let's go to Hosea, chapter 3, if we will. brothers and sisters, we are in Hosea chapter 3, verse 5. And let's see what it says. Thank you for that. Afterward shall the children of Israel return and seek Yah their God and David their king, and shall fear Yah and his goodness in the later days. The children of Israel shall return and seek the Most High. And who? David. Not the literal David himself, because he's passed on the scene. But it's talking about, as we've been pointing out, of the house of David. Let's go to Amos chapter 9, verse 11, to let the book speak again for itself. Thank you for that, family. All right. In that day, I will raise up the tabernacle of David that is fallen, and close up the breaches thereof. And I will raise up his ruins, and I will build it as in the days of old. As in the days of old. Brothers and sisters, in the said Old Testament, as in Lamentations chapter 5, it says, renew our days as of old. They wanted the old way that they was looking for when the Most High was closer to them in the wilderness and under the leadership of Joshua, the son of Nun. So when we read in Amos, which is before Isaiah, and it talks about the tabernacle of David that has fallen, the people of David line was still ruling, but your tabernacle, while you're still ruling, O house of David, on the throne is fallen. The Most High said that he's going to rebuild that. Let's go to Jeremiah chapter 33, verse 21, to let the book again speak for itself. All right. We are in the book of Jeremiah, chapter 33, verse 21. And it says the following. Thank you for that. Then may also my covenant be broken with David. Matter of fact, let's start in verse 19. All right. Jeremiah chapter 33, verse 19. Sorry. And the word of Yah came unto Jeremiah, saying, thus says Yah, if you can break my covenant with the day and my covenant of the night, and that there should not be day and night in their season, then may also my covenant be broken with David my servant, that he should not have a son to reign upon his throne, and with the Levites, the priests, my ministers. And as the host of heaven cannot be numbered, neither the sand of the sea measured, so will I multiply the seed of David my servant, and the Levites that minister unto me. So brothers and sisters, we can see, know, and understand about the importance in the Israelite culture about the house of David and the Levites that minister to the Most High. You have your priesthood and your kingship in that particular manner. I'm being asked regarding the mourning, whether it refers to how they mourn for King Josiah after his death. Is that correct? To my knowledge, I would say no. But if you have info on that, my brother, let me know. I appreciate that. Thank you. I did see the question. I was just going to read it in a second. I do appreciate the question. But to my knowledge, I'm unaware of that particular matter. I know they mourn for Josiah after his assassination, but if you have info on that, please, my brother, bring it out. Thank you for that. Let's read, brothers and sisters, in Isaiah chapter 38. Brothers and sisters, concerning this matter here. Isaiah chapter 38, verse 5 says this. Let's start in verse 4. Then came the word of Yah to Isaiah, saying, go. And say to Hezekiah. It goes on to say, go and say to Hezekiah, thus says the Lord, the God of David thy father, I have heard thy prayer, and I have seen thy tears. Behold, I will add unto thy days 15 years. So when we read days in the scriptures, it is not always talking about a day like today, like a day like that, because there was 15 years added to the days of. Hezekiah. So we want to point that out. All right, in that particular manner, if we will. All right, family, thank you for that. Brothers and sisters, as we talk about House of David and David, correct? If I can be heard well and people in good spirits, please type in the number 4. All present who can hear, thank you for that. Thank you for that. Sorry about that. In Isaiah chapter 38, verse 5, it says concerning King Hezekiah, who was the father of Ahaz. No, sorry. Hezekiah was the son of Ahaz, the father of Manasseh. It says in Isaiah 38, right? Go and say to Hezekiah, thus saith the Lord, the God of David, thy father. So when we read House of David and David, after the death of David, we already still see Solomon is called the son of David when it says David, your father. When, brothers and sisters, we see over 10 generations or so after David, Hezekiah, it still says David, thy father, you are what your father is. And looking at it like that. So now when we go into other portions, when it talks about David and the house of David, one point to make is we're not talking about with the time allotted, right? David himself coming from the ground, from where he's buried, and sitting on the throne. It's talking about his offspring. As we went earlier, we don't do necromancy. We don't look for and call upon, say, the dead in this particular matter, in this particular case. That is not the culture of the Israelites. So these are things we care to point out when we say this and when we talk about what we mean when we speak and read about House of David and David. After his death, it's talking about his offspring. And hopefully these scriptures did help out in that understanding. Let's continue, family. Thank you for that. Daniel chapter 7, and it says, these great beasts which are four kings that shall arise out of the earth. But the saints of the Most High shall receive the kingdom and possess the kingdom forever, even forever and ever. Let's stop there and go to Psalms 148, verse 14. We in the scriptures, Psalms 148, verse 14. All right? It says this, Psalms 148, verse 14. And here is what we read in this particular case. To go line upon line and to gain understanding, to let the book speak for itself. And we read the following. He hath exalted the horn of his people, the praise of all his saints, even the children of Israel, a people near unto him. Hallelujah. Now I want to point out something. That even that you even see there, you notice this in italics because it doesn't say that word even inside of the Hebrew. So what we should read it as is he also exalted the horn of his people, the praise of all his saints, the children of Israel, and people near unto him. Who's near unto Yah? When you read in Deuteronomy, it says Israel, The Lord our God is near unto us whensoever we call upon him. So it's not too hard to figure out who and what is being spoken upon and the position that the children of Israel have with the Most High, the creator of heaven and earth. We are the ambassadors of Yah. We are, on the human level, the messengers of the Most High. Why do they always talk about it? Because the nations know our light. This is not racism. They know our light. So when we up there like, you know, the swan trying to chill with the ducks, the ducks is looking at the swan like, if only you knew your power, your potential, your people, your history. Why do you think they only want to call you a color? My mother, may she rest in peace, if you get Hebrews Easy Volume 6, not trying to play salesman on the Shabbat, she was light-skinned. I got the complexion of my dad. My sister's light-skinned. Coming from a brown-skinned, dark-skinned man. Where does black fit in at as a name? That can't be. See, brothers and sisters, I want to show something. I don't mean no disrespect. Right? If I may. My shirt is black. My skin tone is brown. But that done became a name on job applications. Then they'll call you what? West Indian. Or what? African American. Named after different nations and peoples. Because our true name is Israel. Our true name is Israel. The people of the Most High. So they don't know where to place us at. After slavery, Lincoln was like, we should send them back over to Africa. We don't know what to do. They know what to do because they know who they're dealing with. But you didn't know, like the Philistines did not know what to do with the Ark of the Covenant. So do these nations not know what to do with us. Things that are holy and set aside to the Most High, they did not know what to do. They had to give you amendments in their constitution because our laws come from Yah. So their laws can't match what we already got because our culture is from old. It didn't start in 1776, brothers and sisters. That's why we can't fit in this society but so well. Why you think we talk about taking the children out to school and homeschooling? Why you think we start talking about repatriation? Because there's something within us that says this just ain't it. And what it is getting closer to the Most High, the creator, maker of heaven and earth. My lady made a salient point when her and I was talking. You know, people outside of America don't have as many problems health-wise as, quote, the American. What are they doing? I was in a hospital once, and this is not to shame doctors. Some of them are real cool. I know people I would say this on the internet. I know people who go to the doctor, get the checkout, get the prescription, and then go and take herbal medicines. That's what my relative does who has the HIV. They don't sit there and take the prescription that the doctors give. No, they went and looked up things on herbal things, and their T-cell count is now higher than it was had they taken the other people's medicine. But brothers and sisters, what we're talking about for reference purposes is this. I remember being in a hospital one time, and it was said, and it's not being racial, it was a white doctor and a white man, white patient on the stretcher, gurney, whatever, and a white man who was the doctor. I heard grape juice is good. Well, yeah, perhaps, but take the medicine. Really? Metformin does not cure diabetes. What are you doing? You know what's good for diabetes? Having high sugar myself? Natural insulin that you can sit there and get for less than the price of metformin. You know what's good for it? Bitter melon. You can go to GNC and get that out of the regular store. Bitter melon sits there and gets rid of the sugar in your bloodstream. There are things that sit there and deal with it. And as my lady regularly points out to me, having been my omenette, my nurse, having been my rofa, my doctor, having been my mora, my teacher, your diet. The Most High did not give you anything to make your teeth rot. No, brothers and sisters, the sugar that comes from honey and the sugar that comes from the beehive with honey and the sugar that they give you is not the same kind. manufactured. It don't matter whether you Shem, Ham, or Japheth, black, white, or any other color indifferent. It just don't work out the well as the Most High puts it. So we want to return back to those older ways, the homeopathic ways, if you will, and so forth. The earth, where we come from and where we're going. And brothers and sisters, and looking at this here, when we get in the book of Daniel, right? And it distinctly says that they made war with the saints. Oh, yeah, we won't read that part. But yeah, but the saints of the Most High shall receive the kingdom. So who's the saints of the Most High? The children of Israel. Goes on to say, and shall receive the kingdom and possess the kingdom forever, even forever and ever. So the prince that you read of in Ezekiel 44 of the house of David, that's the kingdom it's talking about. Let's go on. I beheld to the same horn, made war with the saints and prevailed against them. Until the Ancient of Days came, and judgment was given for the saints of the Most High. We already discussed who they were. And the time came, and the saints possessed the kingdom. And the kingdom, and the dominion, and the greatness of the kingdoms under the whole heaven shall be given to the people of the saints of the Most High. Their kingdom is an everlasting kingdom, and all dominions shall serve and obey them. Give me Isaiah chapter 60, verse 10. Here is the end of the matter. As for me, Daniel, my thoughts much to frighten me, and my countenance was changed in me, but I kept the matter in my heart. Isaiah chapter 60, verse 9 and verse 10 to close out. Giving honor and praise unto the Most High, the creator, the maker of heaven and earth. It goes to say here in Isaiah chapter 60, verse 9 and verse 10, to let the book speak for itself. Thank you for that, family. Surely the owls shall wait for me, and the ships of Tarshish first, to bring thy sons from far, their silver and their gold with them, unto the name of Yah thy God, and to the Holy One of Israel, because he hath glorified thee. And the sons of the strangers shall build thy walls, and their king shall minister unto thee. For in my wrath I smote thee, but in my favor had I mercy upon thee. Therefore thy gates shall be open continually. They shall not be shut day nor night, that men may bring unto thee the force of the Gentiles, and that their kings may be brought. For the nation and the kingdom that will not serve thee shall perish. Yea, those nations shall be utterly wasted. In the book of Isaiah chapter 60 we just read, correlates with we just read in the book of Daniel about the nation serving who? Israel. But Israel got replaced by the church, so they want to say that everybody's supposed to serve Jesus. No, Israel, don't give your birthright and your glory to someone else like Esau gave up his birthright. Don't do that. Take what the Most High God has given you and build upon it. Don't struggle, my brothers and sisters who are said to be messianic, wondering whether or not Israel or Jesus is the way, the truth, and the light. When Israel's light is the Torah. So this is no disrespect, no knock, no bash, no offense to anyone, brothers and sisters. But these are things we care to bring out. We ask you to comment, like, share. We hope and pray that everybody is well and will be better. This is the presentation. Thank you all for your time. Have a good week. Pray for your brothers and sisters only to the Most High God. And we hope and pray to see you all soon. There was expected to be a presentation on Solomon that will be postponed to after the 15th of this month, so I can get certain things in my life situated. Not bad, but just important. All right. So shalom. Subscribe to the channel. Hit that bell. You will see when the notifications come up. Hit the notifier thing so you can be notified when we go live again. And we hope and pray. Not plain salesman. If anyone is interested, you can check out the channel's descriptions. And if you find it in your heart to want to get the books that a brother has for yourself or for others, feel free to do so. Giving honor and praise unto Yah. Shalom. Thank you all on the human level. my lady Sarai. Thank you all on the human level, my brother Yirmiyahu. And thank you all, brothers and sisters who decided to participate in the presentation. Shalom. Most I bless.